If a terrified little girl ever calls you at 2 a.m. saying her dad is locked outside frantically knocking, but she can hear him snoring in the bedroom, do not let anyone in. I work as a night security guard at an apartment building with a very low occupancy rate, and that was the night I truly understood that monsters don't hide in the dark. They walk around wearing the faces of the people we love. It was a freezing Tuesday in November, exactly 3 inches the morning. I was sitting in the cramped, fluorescent-lit security booth at the main entrance of Blackwood Heights. Blackwood Heights is a massive, 14-story luxury complex that went bankrupt halfway through construction. Because of the legal mess, the occupancy rate is sitting at a pathetic 10%. That means out of 200 units, maybe 20 actually have living, breathing human beings inside them. The rest of the building is just dead space, empty, echoing hallways, locked doors, and an absolute suffocating silence. I took the night shift because the pay was decent, and I thought it would be easy money. I could just sit there, drink cheap gas station coffee, and watch movies on my phone until the sun came up. My partner for the night shift was a guy named Gary. Gary was a notorious slacker who spent most of his shifts sleeping in the basement security office, where the camera monitors were. I didn't mind, because nothing ever happened here anyway. But that night, at exactly 2:03 a.m., the landline phone on my desk started to ring. Now, you have to understand that landline never rings. It is an internal system, only connected to the intercoms inside the actual apartments. At 2 in the morning, every single resident in this building should have been fast asleep. I stared at the blinking red light on the console for a few seconds, feeling a weird knot form in my stomach. I reached out and picked up the heavy plastic receiver. Blackwood Security, Alex speaking. How can I help you? I asked, trying to keep my voice professional. There was no immediate answer. Instead, a thick, rhythmic static scratched against my ear, accompanied by a wet, heavy breathing sound. It sounded like someone was holding a cheap microphone far too close to their mouth. Hello? If this is a prank, I have to log the apartment number, I said, getting slightly annoyed. Then, a tiny, trembling voice broke through the static noise. Sir, are you the security man? It was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 7 or 8 years old, and she was whispering so quietly I had to press the phone hard against my ear. Yes, sweetie. I'm the security guard. My name is Alex, I said, my posture immediately straightening up. Are you okay? Where are your parents? My name is Lily. I live in apartment 303, she whispered, her voice hitching as if she was desperately trying not to cry. Lily, what's wrong? Are you hurt? No, but there is a man standing outside my door. I relaxed slightly, assuming it was just a drunk resident who had gotten off on the wrong floor. Okay, Lily, listen to me carefully. Make sure the deadbolt is locked, and I will be right up, I reassured her. Is he trying to break the door down? He's knocking, she said. He keeps knocking and telling me to open the door. Don't listen to him. I'll be there in 2 minutes. I reached for my heavy Maglite flashlight, ready to hang up, but her next words froze me in place. But sir, Lily sobbed quietly into the receiver. He looks exactly like my dad. I paused, my hand hovering over the stun gun on my belt. Lily, if he looks like your dad, why are you so scared to let him inside? What she said next made the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up. Because my real dad is asleep in his bedroom right now. The door is cracked open. I can hear him snoring. I dropped the pen I was holding. It hit the desk with a sharp clatter, sounding abnormally loud in the silent security booth. Lily, do not look through the peephole again. Get away from the door. I am on my way. I slammed the phone down, grabbed my flashlight and my taser, and sprinted out of the booth. The main elevator was parked on the 14th floor, and I did not have the patience to wait for it to come down. I shoved open the heavy metal fire door and took the concrete stairs 2 at a time. My heavy boots echoed loudly in the stairwell, bouncing off the damp concrete walls. The air in the stairwell was always cold, but tonight it felt distinctly unnatural, like the inside of an industrial meat locker. When I finally reached the 3rd floor landing, my lungs were burning. I pushed the fire door open as quietly as I possibly could and stepped into the hallway. The 3rd floor was a long, narrow corridor lined with cheap patterned carpet that absorbed the sound of my footsteps. Only half of the overhead fluorescent lights were functioning. The broken ones were constantly flickering and emitting a low, continuous buzz, like a swarm of dying insects. And right there, halfway down the hall, standing directly in front of apartment 303, was a man. He was wearing a gray business suit that looked a little too big for him. It hung off his shoulders in a sloppy, disorganized way, as if he didn't quite know how clothing was supposed to fit. He wasn't pounding on the door anymore. He had his forehead pressed entirely flat against the solid wood. Both of his hands were resting flat on the stained surface. His fingers splayed unnaturally wide, like a spider clinging to a wall. He wasn't moving a muscle, and his breathing was so shallow his chest didn't even rise. He was just waiting. "Hey, security!" I barked, turning on my maglite and aiming the blinding beam directly at his back. "Step away from the door and put your hands where I can see them." The man didn't flinch. Normal people wince, jump, or shield their eyes when a 1,000-lumen flashlight hits them in a dark hallway. He did absolutely none of those things. He simply peeled his face away from the wood with a slow, mechanical stiffness and turned his head to look over his shoulder at me. "Oh, thank goodness," he said. His voice was pleasant, far too pleasant. It sounded perfectly modulated, lacking any stress or exhaustion, like an automated customer service recording. "I'm so glad you are here, officer. I am Lily's father. I live in 303. He slowly turned his entire body to face me, and I kept my distance, my thumb hovering right over the safety switch of my taser. "If you live here, why are you locked out?" I demanded. The man let out a long sigh and ran a hand through his dark hair. The movement felt entirely rehearsed, like an actor hitting his mark on a stage. "My daughter is just a kid. She has a very active imagination. She got scared of the dark and locked the manual deadbolt from the inside. My electronic keycard won't work on the physical latch." He smiled at me, but the smile stopped halfway up his face. It never reached his eyes. In fact, his eyes were completely wrong. His pupils were dilated so wide they almost covered the entire iris, resembling two black, bottomless holes absorbing the glare of my flashlight. "Look, I have had a brutal day," he continued, taking a slow step toward me. "I was at the firm until midnight. I even ordered her a burger on my way home so she wouldn't go to bed hungry. I just want to go inside and sleep." "Stop right there," I ordered firmly, raising the flashlight higher. He stopped instantly, both of his feet planted perfectly together in unison. "Lily called me down at the booth," I said, keeping my eyes locked on his pale face. "She said her dad is currently inside the apartment, sleeping." For a fraction of a second, the man's expression entirely dropped. The fake, tired smile vanished, and his face went completely blank, like a television screen losing its signal. "She is confused," he said, his voice suddenly dropping an entire octave. "Kids get confused." He reached a hand inside his suit jacket pocket. I immediately raised the taser, but he slowly pulled out his smartphone and turned the glowing screen toward me. It was a digital receipt from a food delivery app. The blue light cast harsh shadows across his features. "See? I ordered a burger and fries from the diner down the street. It was delivered right here to apartment 303 at 1:15 a.m. Why would I order food from outside if I was already inside? Sleeping?" I squinted at the glowing screen. The receipt looked completely legitimate. The timestamp, the address, the restaurant, everything matched perfectly. I felt a sudden heavy wave of doubt wash over me. Was the kid just sleepwalking? Was she having a night terror? Was I currently aiming a weapon at an exhausted, frustrated father who just wanted to see his daughter? I stepped slightly closer to the door, keeping my body angled toward the man in the suit, and knocked gently on the wood. "Lily? It's Alex from security. I'm right outside," I called out softly. "Is he still out there?" Her tiny, frightened voice came through the thick barrier. "Yes, but listen to me. He is showing me a digital receipt for a burger. Did he order you food tonight, Lily?" There was a long, agonizing pause. The silence stretched until it felt like it was suffocating me. When she finally answered, I felt the bottom drop completely out of my stomach. "No, Alex. My dad brought the burger home himself when he finished work. At 7 o'clock tonight. We ate it together at the table before he put me to bed." I slowly turned my head back to the man in the suit. The math was wrong. The logic was completely, irreparably broken. If the real father came home at 7 o'clock, who the hell ordered the food at 1:15 the morning? The man wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't pretending to be a frustrated dad who had worked a 14-hour shift. He was just staring at me. And in the dim fluorescent light, I noticed something else that made my skin crawl. He wasn't blinking. He had not blinked a single time since I emerged from the stairwell. I took a slow, deliberate step back, creating more distance between us. "Call the delivery driver," I told him. My voice was surprisingly steady, even though my heart was trying to hammer its way out of my ribcage. The man did not move a single muscle. "Call him right now. Put it on speakerphone. Or, I swear to God I am putting 50,000 volts straight through your chest," I warned, raising the taser. He slowly raised his phone. His fingers moved across the glass screen with a stiff, jerky motion, like a broken animatronic robot. The phone rang 3 times. "Yeah? Hello?" A tired, thoroughly annoyed voice came through the speaker. "Hey man, this is Blackwood Security," I said loudly, refusing to take my eyes off the suit. "You delivered an order to Building A, Apartment 303 about an hour ago. Who exactly did you hand the food to?" The driver groaned loudly into the phone. "Look man, I didn't even go upstairs." "What do you mean? Who took the food?" I pressed. A woman met me down by the basement entrance. She said she was the kid's mom and the dad was working late, so she came down to grab it. "A woman?" I asked the delivery driver, my voice shaking. "Yeah, she had long black hair and a really shrill voice. She took the food and went down into the basement," he said, and then hung up. I looked at the man in the suit standing in the hallway. He looked just as terrified as I was. His eyes were wide with shock. "But my wife passed away 4 years ago," he whispered, stepping back from his own door. If the woman in the basement wasn't his wife, and the man outside was the real dad, who the hell was sleeping in the bedroom with Lily? The man lost his mind. He started pounding on the door violently. "Lily, open the door." "It's not safe in there," he screamed. But there was absolutely no response from inside, not a single sound. I knew I had to call the police, but I was terrified of aggravating whatever was inside that apartment. I told the dad to stay back, and I ran down to the lobby to make the call. But to my absolute shock, the local police didn't show up. Instead, a massive, black, heavily armored truck pulled up to the entrance. It looked like a fire engine, but painted pitch black. Several men piled out, wearing entirely sealed, bright yellow hazmat suits. The squad leader walked up to me and flashed a completely black badge. "Federal Containment Agency," he barked. "The city police transferred this to us. We will handle it. Do not speak of this." I didn't have time to process it. They marched straight into the building and up to the 3rd floor. The dad was still frantically begging Lily to open the door. The weirdest part was that despite all his screaming, not a single neighbor had opened their door to look. The FCA leader saw there was no response, so he didn't even knock. He gestured to his men, and they used a heavy breaching ram to smash the door completely off its hinges. We rushed in. Lily was just standing in the middle of the living room, frozen. Her eyes were filled with absolute terror, and tears were streaming down her face. And across the room, the master bedroom door was still tightly closed. "Why didn't you open the door?" the dad cried, running to hug her. But Lily didn't react. She just kept staring at the bedroom. It hit me then. Human beings have a natural instinct to escape danger. If she refused to open the front door for her real dad, it meant she believed whatever was inside that bedroom was listening to her every move. Before I could think any further, a gunshot rang out. Agents 002 and 003 kicked the bedroom door open and charged inside. Almost immediately, 2 muffled, agonizing screams echoed from the bedroom. The agents were yelling frantically for backup. I heard heavy gunfire, but it sounded bizarre, like bullets hitting wet, thick mud instead of solid objects. The squad leader didn't hesitate. He grabbed my shoulder with brutal force. "Don't look! Move!" he roared, grabbing the dad and Lily with his other arm. We were dragged out of the apartment before I could even see what was in that room. As we were shoved toward the stairs, I heard 2 crisp, final gunshots from the bedroom, and then the radio went dead. The chaos upstairs was still happening, but we were completely terrified into silence. Lily couldn't even make a sound to cry. They threw us into the back of a black transport vehicle and sped out of the city limits. When the vehicle finally stopped, we were escorted into a massive, purely white building. I had never seen it before. The logo on the door was a strange geometric symbol. They separated us. I was stripped, searched, and thrown into a cold, metal interrogation room. 2 agents wearing full gas masks walked in. Their voices were completely devoid of emotion. They made me recount every single second of the night, over and over again. But they kept asking me one specific question, focusing intensely on it. Are you absolutely certain you did not hear any other voices inside the apartment? Just the little girl? Yes, I repeated for the 5th time. I only heard Lily. The 2 agents looked at each other, a heavy silence falling over the room. Fine. You are cleared to leave, one of them finally said. As I was walking out the door, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I turned back to them. What the hell was in that bedroom? Was it really another version of her dad? The agent didn't even look up. Go back to work. And be grateful you only heard one voice. They dropped me back at the apartment complex an hour later. I had to deal with my property manager making up some lie about a plumbing emergency to explain the broken door. But as I grabbed my flashlight to finish my patrol, my mind was racing. I walked past Building A, looking up at the 3rd floor. Apartment 303 was pitch black. Right at that moment, my radio crackled to life. It was the property manager. Alex, a resident, just complained about weird noises coming from the basement. Go check it out. I stared at the dark entrance to the basement stairs, a profound sense of dread washing over me. The words of the delivery driver suddenly echoed in my head. She said she was the mom. She went down to the basement. If Lily lived on the 3rd floor, why was the woman who took the food hiding in the basement? Could it be that the thing pretending to be her mom was down there? I wanted to quit right then and there, but I needed this minimum wage job to pay my rent. I gripped my flashlight tightly and began to descend into the damp, lightless basement. The motion sensor lights had been broken for weeks. The air was thick and smelled heavily of mold. Suddenly, there was a loud creak. An iron storage door at the far end of the hallway swung open entirely on its own. Who's down there? I called out, my voice echoing off the concrete. Silence. I crept closer, shining my beam on the rusted metal door. Painted on the front in faded white numbers was 303. It was Lily's family storage unit. What a terrifying coincidence. I ignored my racing heart and pushed the iron door fully open. The exact second the door swung wide, a small, dark shadow darted past me so fast I could feel the wind off it. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Was my mind playing tricks on me? I stepped back out of the unit, sweeping my flashlight across the pale walls. Everything looked normal, until the beam hit the corner near the lower level stairs. Standing there, facing the concrete wall with her back completely to me, was a woman with long, greasy black hair. Hey! Who are you? I yelled. She didn't turn around slowly. She snapped her neck backward, presenting a deathly pale, smooth face with absolutely zero facial features. I let out a scream and stumbled backward, almost falling onto the wet floor. The moment I screamed, the thing vanished, sprinting down into the pitch-black entrance of basement level 2. Stop right there, I yelled, adrenaline completely taking over my brain. I chased after it, determined to see what was tormenting this building. But when I reached the 2nd level, it was completely empty. Just rows of dusty pipes and silence. My radio buzzed. Alex, where did you go? You're not in the basement camera feed. It was my partner, Gary. I didn't have the energy to explain. I told him I was coming back up, but as I walked back past the wall where the faceless woman had just been standing, I stopped. In the harsh glare of my flashlight, the entire gray concrete wall was now completely covered in overlapping, bloody handprints. I ran the rest of the way up to the security booth. When I burst through the door, I froze. The lights in apartment 303 were still completely off. The FCA agents had not brought Lily and her dad back. Then, my partner Gary called me on the radio again. Alex, get back to the front desk. A resident is here looking for her missing kid. His voice sounded incredibly strange, flat, forced. I shook off my dread and hurried back to the main lobby. Gary was standing behind the desk, talking to a woman. Sir, have you seen my daughter? The woman asked me as I approached. There was something off about her. Her tone was way too calm for a mother missing a child. My daughter's name is Lily. She smiled. My heart dropped into my stomach. How could it be Lily again? I stared at her suspiciously. She reached into her purse and pulled out a piece of printer paper. This is her, she said, tapping the blurry photo. I looked at it and instantly exhaled in relief. It wasn't the same girl from apartment 303. But before I could speak, I noticed the horrifying details in the picture. The girl's hair was unnaturally long, covering most of her body. Her facial features were completely smeared, like wet paint, and the entire photograph was covered in random, bright white exposure spots. I pointed at the picture, about to ask what the hell was wrong with her camera. Ah, I see her. She just walked into the building, the woman suddenly said, staring at the security monitor. She turned to me, a grotesque, wide smile stretching across her face. You security guards aren't bad at all. She turned and walked out the glass doors before I could even process her words. Gary cursed under his breath, grabbed a roll of toilet paper, and told me he had to use the bathroom. I sat down alone in the quiet booth, staring blankly at the monitors. To distract myself, I pulled out my phone and opened YouTube. The very first video recommended to me had no thumbnail, just a 2-word title, The Mimics, and the channel name was Federal Containment Agency. I clicked it. It was shaky phone footage of someone filming their neighbor through a window. The neighbor in the video was standing still, but his facial features were slowly twisting and warping in a horrifying way. Then, the man in the video reached up, ripped his own right cheek off, and slapped it back onto his face. Suddenly, the video footage became corrupted with the exact same white exposure spots I had just seen on the woman's photo. I tried to scroll down, but the video froze. My phone screen glitched violently and then went completely black. It was dead. What a piece of garbage, I muttered, trying to restart it. What are you doing? A voice said from directly behind my left ear. I jumped out of my chair. It was Gary. Jesus, Gary. You scared the life out of me. How did you finish in the bathroom so fast? Gary was a legendary slacker. A bathroom break for him meant a minimum of 30 minutes playing games on his phone. Gary just stared at me, his facial muscles stiff. He forced a smile. I'm finished. Before I could question him further, the landline phone on the desk rang. I picked it up. Alex, can you come downstairs now? I have something to give you. It was Lily's voice. Lily, when did you and your dad get back? I didn't see you on the cameras. She didn't answer my question. She just sniffled. I'm so scared, Alex. Please come outside. I'll be right there, I said, immediately hanging up the phone. But as I looked down at the caller ID display, my blood ran cold. The phone number that had just called me. It was the exact reverse sequence of digits from Lily's first call tonight. Where are you going? Gary asked from the shadows near the door. I have to go check on the kid outside, I said, grabbing my heavy flashlight. I'll come with you, Gary said, his voice flat. I felt a sudden, intense paranoia, but I just nodded, and we walked out into the cold night. We walked to the courtyard below, Building A, but it was completely empty. I pulled out my radio to call the booth, but it was nothing but static. Where is she? I muttered. Gary shined his flashlight toward the dark entrance of the basement stairwell across the lot. I saw a little shadow run down there, he whispered softly. Let's go look. A deep anger flared up inside me. I was done being played with. I marched straight toward the basement stairs, but as I descended the first few steps, I realized Gary had stopped at the top. I'll just wait for you up here, he said, standing perfectly still in the dark. I ignored him and kept walking down. Suddenly, the radio on my belt blared to life. Alex, where the hell are you? It was Gary's voice, and he sounded annoyed. I just got out of the bathroom. Why is the security booth completely empty? I stopped dead on the stairs. I slowly turned my head and looked up at the figure standing at the top of the stairwell. If the real Gary was on the radio inside the building, who was standing right above me? My flashlight beam accidentally swept across the face of the fake Gary. I saw his neck violently twitch. Then, every single feature on his face began to physically twist and contort, like melting plastic. I screamed. I pushed off the wall and sprinted past him with a speed I didn't know I possessed. The thing chased me. It was incredibly fast, its footsteps slapping loudly on the pavement. As it ran, It spoke into its own radio, perfectly mimicking Lily's voice, accompanied by high-pitched static. "We just want to be friends, Alex," the twisted voice shrieked. I crashed through the security booth door and slammed the deadbolt shut. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. The real Gary was sitting in his chair, looking at me like I was insane. "What is wrong with you?" he asked. Before I could answer, Gary's eyes went wide. His jaw dropped in pure horror. He raised a shaking finger and pointed at the glass door behind me. I turned around, standing under the pale streetlight, pressing his face against the glass of our booth, was an exact duplicate of me. My clone slowly smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and waved at us. Right at that exact second, the power grid for the entire apartment complex failed. Plunged into absolute darkness, I heard Gary frantically scrambling for a flashlight. "It cut the power!" I yelled, tossing him a heavy wrench from the toolbox. "Stay away from the glass!" But when I turned on my light, Gary wasn't there. The side door connecting the booth to the main electrical room was wide open. "Gary?" I called out, terror gripping my chest. Footsteps echoed from the dark electrical room. Gary walked out of the shadows. "I just went to check the breakers, Alex." "It's fine." He reached out and grabbed my arm. His grip was like a steel vise. It actually bruised my bone. Gary was weak. He took supplements just to stay awake. This thing holding me had inhuman strength. I shined my flashlight directly into his face. His facial features were melting, swirling together like a mess of wet clay. I screamed, violently ripped my arm out of his grasp, and bolted down the dark corridor. A horrifying, booming laugh echoed behind me. It was Gary's voice, but distorted and demonic. I glanced back over my shoulder. The thing was ripping off Gary's security uniform. Underneath the fabric, its skin was tearing open, and a massive clump of long, greasy black hair burst out. It was the faceless woman from the basement, wearing my partner's skin like a cheap suit. I dove behind a massive backup generator in the dark. I unclipped my radio and hurled it as hard as I could toward the far corner of the room. The heavy plastic clattered loudly against the concrete. The monster immediately lunged toward the sound, crashing into the shadows. I didn't wait. I scrambled to my feet and ran blindly out the emergency exit doors. I stumbled into the parking lot, my lungs burning, completely out of breath. Parked right at the entrance of the complex was the massive black SUV from the Federal Containment Agency. An agent in a bright yellow hazmat suit flung the passenger door open. "Get in. The perimeter is breached," he yelled. Feeling like I had just been handed a lifeline, I dove headfirst into the passenger seat. The SUV peeled out, tires squealing as we sped onto the pitch-black highway. "Thank God." "Thank you," I gasped, leaning back in the seat. I turned to look at the agent to thank him properly. The dim orange glow of a passing street lamp illuminated the cabin. The bright yellow shoulder of his suit was soaked in fresh, dark blood, and printed right across, it was Unit 002. It was the agent who had kicked open Lily's bedroom door, the one who had screamed and died. My body went entirely rigid. I slowly looked up at his helmet. His neck was snapped backward at a grotesque 180-degree angle. The opaque black visor was staring directly at me, completely unmoving, while his body continued to drive the car forward. Suddenly, the dashboard completely shorted out. A deafening, piercing emergency siren exploded from the radio speakers. A cold, mechanical female voice began broadcasting. "The Federal Containment Agency reminds all citizens that mimics have infiltrated the city limits." Agent 002 reached out a bloody, gloved hand and pressed the central locking button on the door. Click. "If you notice the people around you acting strangely, or if their faces begin to distort, do not panic," the voice droned on. "Do not take pictures. Do not scream. Please remain calm and open your doors." The SUV swerved off the highway, driving deep into the lightless forest. "We will forever mimic you," the broadcast concluded, "until we finally replace you. Have a wonderful, eternal day."